Welcome to the 12 Days of Zentangle and Project Pack number 22. This is day 11. My name is Rick.
Hi, I'm Maria.
And we are proceeding on this marvelous adventure, and I'm going to use all of my tools, I think, on this.
You usually do that, right?
Right.
I'm sort of a simplifier, but I think you may manage to get them all in there, which is really lovely.
Right? And you'll see that Molly and Martha have done 2 of those spiral sections, and I'm going to do 2 of them on this day, and then we're going to shade everything tomorrow.
Okay.
Now, when I start, I'm looking at this little spiral, and I want the spiral to continue in a little bit more. So I'm going to make that other square, and I like that little extra bit there.
Yeah. Okay.
Hey, it's important to me.
I know that. Okay, with your black 01.
Right. And I'm going to follow the same theme that Molly and Martha did in dividing up this spiral section, or this spiral, into sections. And you'll see that little flare at the end. Always nice to have a little flare.
Well, it just makes it not a straight line.
Yeah.
Which anything that makes it not a straight line is really good with me.
With you, right? And you'll see that I'm targeting the center of that spiral. So wherever I'm drawing from, I'm just going to bring it towards the center of that spiral. And I like to draw my straight lines towards me, or it's just the way my muscles work. So it's a technique that I've developed, and you may decide that you want to try it both ways.
Right.
And I'm looking at those as like maybe they're a little bit pronounced. So where it's on the outside edge.
You can see that just by doing a little bit of a flare at the end and curving, it gives you a 3D effect, like it's going around the edges.
And it doesn't have to be much, just a little bit. And you also notice that I'm drawing, I think for the most part, I'm drawing the left line first, because then when I draw the right line and aura it, I'm not covering the line with my pen.
Except like that.
Except right there.
Okay.
Okay, so it's a guideline, right?
Right.
A guideline. Just a little bit of a flare. And you'll see they're getting a little bit smaller, a little bit closer together. I just have in my mind, the proportion that it might be.
So now you can see that spiral there. It was starting to disappear, so I was wondering what you were going to do with that.
And when we do the shading, that'll be a real opportunity to bring that out. So I'm using my brown 05, and this is a delightful mix of straight and curvy, because we're doing what we call crazy in Zeppel. And Zeppel is a series of lines that are put down in an organized way, and crazy in Zeppel is a series of lines that are put down in a very rambunctiously random way.
Right.
And you'll notice that I'm using the 05, but I'm getting like a micron 01 line, actually, because I'm doing it very, very lightly.
I was wondering about that.
And by turning the tile, there's like this, each of the lines are the same character, the amount of wiggliness or straightness. So now I'm using the same pen, but I'm bringing more pressure.
So you're kind of, how did we describe it before? You kind of smooshing a balloon in there, right?
So if you imagine, like one of those foam balls or a balloon, and it's a little bit too big to just fit in there without being distorted.
And it leaves the little corners open.
Yes. And you'll also see in this, I am going over the line even if the other one next to it has already been drawn.
Redefining the line.
I'm redefining the line. And it just gives a sense of, even if you go over it exactly the same, it brings a different character to it.
Mm-hmm. So you don't want to cut corners here.
Nice one.
Sorry, I got to take it where I can get it, yeah.
And what's neat about this is in between those, which look to me like, paving stones on a beautiful patio in, some grand old estate, you have those little lighter lines, and it just becomes part of the pattern.
Now, one of the things that I think makes Inzeppel and Crazy Inzeppel so cool are those lines in the corners. And I think a lot of people think, oh, I'm going to just color those in. And it doesn't have the same effect. I mean, you can do it, but the effect of Inzeppel is leaving those lines open and having that crisscross thing there.
So I'm going to show you one whole section here. So I'm capping my brown pen, and I'm getting that lovely ochre color. And now we're going to do a combination of aura and printemps, but it's like printemps backwards. So I'm auraing the element of Inzeppel and just going round and round and round all the way into the middle till I run out of space.
Again with the spirals, huh?
You're sensing a theme here, right? And actually, printemps is all about aura. You're just starting at the center of the spiral and going outwards, auraing the line as you go. And with these gel pens, a light touch is all you need.
And they also are, you might even notice this as a automatic pilot thing, but you need to hold them up more upright than a micron, because they're a ballpoint, and ballpoints work better that way. They release the ink better, so you hold it so that it's almost vertical.
Which is a real challenge for me for doing these videos, because when I hold it really vertically,
you can't see.
Then
what
all
you're
you
doing.
see is my knuckle. Yeah.
So
isn't
that looks
cool?
really cool. Yeah. And you're going to do that in every one of those sections.
Right.
So that's a pretty simple lesson right here. Okay.
And as I go to the smaller and smaller ones, I'll keep that sense of proportion in mind. And again, just lightly and randomly. And one of the ways to get that randomness is to turn the tile, this way and that. And you'll notice my right hand isn't really moving that much. So once we get that grid down,
those Nerf balls or whatever,
we'll stuff those in.
Hard-boiled eggs.
Hard-boiled eggs.
Could be anything, right?
Right.
One of these days, I'm going to have an egg ready for you to smoosh it in there.
Without the shell. Right? It's like, it's just fun to watch. Right. I don't do the whole thing on the video, but it is as fun to watch it as you're doing it as it is to watch somebody else do it. And if you just really focus on one line at a time, not thinking about, what time it is, when I'm going to be done, you just sort of watch this beauty unfold on this paper through your hand. And I think that's one of the charms of Zentangle. So as I get to the smaller ones, the little orbs and lines make smaller spaces. And when I go to the bigger ones, we'll do them a little bigger. And again, you'll just, I think, naturally get a sense of what you're doing. And if you think yours doesn't look like mine, well, if we were to meet...
I should hope so.
If we were to meet, you probably don't look like me either. So there's the same way, there's no reason that your art needs to look exactly like anybody else's. Yet we can all take this sort of inspiration of these ideas and these strings and these explorations and make them our own. That's our hope, is that you'll make this your own and do something that, we might never have even thought of with this.
Right. That's how Zentangle grows and evolves.
Yeah. And so we're just going to, keep doing this. I really love this idea. And you'll see what I did there. The reason I showed that is I did the light crisscross part on all of them. And now I'm going back and inserting the little squishy orbs in there. And you might try it both ways and see which one works best for you. So at this size, some of these just get little dots in the middle, just to keep that texture. Really like how that's looking. And it compares nicely to the one next to it. And now on this section, we're going behind that pod-like creation and the leaves that are next to it. And you'll see that I draw literally behind because I don't want to guess where my pen might come out. I actually hover over the area that I, and the line would be going behind.
So Rick takes formula to a whole other level. And I love to have different versions of how people do things. And I'm glad that you're able to watch 4 or 5 of us drawing and hearing the different rhythms that make them happy, because that's what it's all about. You have to learn what rhythms you like to do, or what series you put your strokes down at, and you'll figure it out and what works best for you.
Yeah, and this is sort of like being exposed to a recipe. And you might try a recipe exactly from, the cookbook, and then you will end up doing a recipe that is, you start to slowly tweak it as you... Maria's laughing.
I'm wondering where you're going to go with this, because I made some spätzle last night, and I tried to do it without looking up the recipe again, and it really did not. It came out like mush because I didn't have enough flour in. But my thing is, I'm going to take the chance,
right,
and see what happens.
And so that's how you come up with something that's really good, or you don't have to eat it.
Yeah.
I guess that was on my mind.
I know. I could see it coming, and you're trying to figure out a way to say this without making me feel bad.
So you'll see that the little orb areas are larger on this side, and just doing that drawing behind. And right down to the very, very end.
You don't want to rush towards the end, because I think that's a tendency because but if you can hang on and just go at the same pace, no matter what size and everything.
And again, a very light touch on the jelly roll. It's very strange that, you'd think, oh, I'm going to get more by pushing harder, and you end up getting less.
Right.
Cool. So that is this spiral on one side. And we didn't show it, but you can probably imagine that I've taped, I untaped the ones that Molly and Martha did, and then I taped the back so that, these sections were the same, or were stuck together. And again, I'm going to put that little extra curve in there. And I am going to use, again with the black pen, again with the same flare at the end, and then sort of coming a little closer, just having fun with it, and aiming for the center of that, where that curve all comes together, and just staying on one side of the string of that curve. So you'll notice the advantage of the string here is that we're ignoring some of them and using others of them. So I'm ignoring, or I think all of us sort of ignored those square sections and just working with the curved sections. And when it's done, you don't even see, unless you look really, really carefully, where those squares were in the first place.
It's funny, you're drawing these lines to that spiral line in the middle, and the minute you direct them towards there, it pops out. Can you see the spiral popping out?
Yeah.
How funny is that?
Always turning your tile and, remembering to breathe, remembering just to hold your pen with as much pressure as you need to keep it from running away.
Okay. You don't want it to run away.
Well, I think it was you told me this story, and we put it in our first book, was that one should hold a pen as lightly as you hold a robin's egg, that like a part of a robin's egg. Mm-hmm. Here in this part of this world, we have this bird called a robin, and they have these beautiful light sky blue
Well, so I
eggs.
like the color of those pods right there.
Yeah, that's true. It's very much like that. Exactly.
And they leave behind their shells, and I don't know any other birds that somehow...
Well, I think they take them and drop them away from the nest, so you don't look up and say, oh, there's the nest.
Oh, you think that's it?
I think that's it. I don't know if that's it, but I think that's it.
We like to think that's it. So you are now doing...
Hollis.
And
if you go to the newsletter, you will find, and just search the newsletters. We have a whole newsletter and introduction of this tangle.
And the step out.
And I think it might be on the app as well. And the history of this is that we were invited to, Maria and I were invited to speak at a CZT Zentangle event in Taiwan. And we wanted to bring a tangle that would be resonant with the background of that part of this world. So we were in a museum, and we were looking at pottery from that part of the world, and it had these patterns on it. And actually, if you walk, I would go out in the morning and walk all around Taiwan, and I'd love to go into the temples and look at the patterns and take pictures, and you'll see this, or a form of this, prevalently everywhere. And so the challenge was, how do you take that inspiration and do a step out to make it into a tangle? And so this is how that works. And you can see we're just it's like elements of mukha, elements of aura. And it's a really good exercise to do those curves, come around, and then come back in on themselves and imagining, okay, well, which way am I going to do the next one? I don't know. I think I'm thinking here.
I can hear it. you make a lot of noise when you're thinking.
Right?
Yeah.
And so I want to just sort of fill up the section, but not the same way every time. And just imagining how these lines would go. And it's a really great exercise. Isn't that beautiful?
Mm.
And you just do it one curve or spiral. One curve or one spiral at a time. So it's sort of cool because this little spiral here is sort of the same shape of this whole string.
Right.
So it brings an element of fractal beauty into this, that the
Right.
shape of the whole thing is part of the pattern on it.
If you're not aware of what fractals are, you look it up and find out what kind of place they take in the world around us.
Yeah, fractals are absolutely amazing and beautiful patterns. So it would be like, if you look at a maple tree and a piece of broccoli, they have the same shape. But if you cut off a piece of the whole broccoli and look at it, the little bit of it looks like the whole broccoli.
Yeah.
So that would be an example of fractal. Not the maple tree.
Right. Aren't ferns like that too?
Ferns are exactly like that. So you can see what we're doing here. We're just finding a curve. And if you want to, you can also use a holobah technique and draw behind. So you have that option to use or not use at your pleasure. And as we get into these smaller ones, these get a little smaller and smaller.
Tiny little one.
Right? But the same principle,
Right.
same principle applies. This is actually really fun, and it's a really, really good exercise for drawing curves and then auraing them. So I'm just imagining where that might go behind that. And then you have a sense of where it would come out. And so there's this takeoff from one side, and then you aura it, and then you aura it all the way back down. And then you alternate one side to the other. And you may come up with other ways to do this. Here I'm again doing a little bit of holobah. Just seeing where that would come in, where it would go out. Turning my tile. And then we'll just fill up these last spaces. And there we have hollis in each one of those sections. Now I'm going to go back to that beautiful ochre pen. Ochre, right?
Okay, yeah.
The jelly roll. And we're going to put in orbs. And orbs are these, it's a resonant with those orbs that we squished into the enzeppel.
Mm-hmm.
And I learned this, Maria taught me this, is you find the biggest section that can take an orb, and you put the biggest orb, like, see, that's the largest area, and now in these smaller areas, you just keep filling them up with orbs, as small as you want to go.
To have this effect.
To have this, right. Instead of starting with the small ones, you start with the big ones.
We do that in flux, right?
Yeah. So it's like we were doing a craft fair once, and there was this booth next to us, and they were selling puzzles, and they were really cool puzzles. And got talking with the woman, and she was saying the secret to doing a puzzle, and this was an assembly puzzle. You had these different pieces, and you had to fill in a section, is always start with the biggest piece first. So if you got to put rocks in or orbs in, put the biggest one in first. But unlike that puzzle, these puzzle pieces you can smush any way you want.
You can do whatever you want. It's such a forgiving art form. I love it.
And I like making these challenges, and then, just taking that, like Maria said earlier, that formula, and just applying it throughout the area and watching what pattern comes out of it just by following those elements. So you can squish, and you can also just leave a section. You don't have to have an orb like there. I just didn't fill those in because they're so tiny. But I think you get the principle there. And it's this lovely texture behind or supporting that hollis, and the combination of the ochre and the brown. Isn't that cool?
Very nice. A soft effect. And this isn't a big surprise, but if you analyze some fabric patterns, like when you go to a sewing store and you see all the bolts of fabric and you see the patterns and stuff, you can break down how the pattern was created, because they're repeating patterns. They have to repeat. You can't have fabric and have it not repeat.
Right.
You figure that out, and you can see that this is something that's been being done for thousands of years.
Yeah. So who says I can't do curved lines? just saying.
You're just saying? Okay. Well, okay.
And I've seen you do straight lines. So.
Yes. Straightish.
Ish.
I think you do curves better than I do straight.
I'll take that.
Okay.
So right down to the end, whichever section likes a big orb, and then do as many as small as you want. Leave it when you don't want to do any. Moving your tile or tiles beneath your hand in whichever way is comfortable, because Zentangle art is essentially non-representational. So there's no up and down or left or right, so you're really free to spin the tile, unlike something that's locked in an easel.
How pretty.
Right? So there's that one. So now we've got all of the ink on both of our, or on all four of our quadrants there.
How beautiful, right?
And so we'll see you tomorrow when we add some graphite and some shading.
Wait till you see it come to life. It's just amazing.
So thanks so much for being with us, and can't wait to bring this all together tomorrow.
See you later. Bye.
Bye now.